High in the unforgiving, thin air of the Bolivian Andes, above 12,800 feet, lies a ruin that should not exist. A place where the rules of physics, history, and ancient engineering seem to have been violently shattered. The stone is impossibly hard, the cuts are unbelievably precise, and the structures are scattered across the frozen plateau, as if a giant hand had suddenly swatted them down. This is Punku, the Gate of the Puma, and it is the world's greatest monument to ancient technological mystery. The first impossible truth about Punku is its location. The Altiplano is a high-altitude desert, a place where no trees grow, where the air is thin and the weather is brutal. Any civilization that built here faced not only massive cold, but extreme logistical challenges. Yet, 1,500 years ago, a culture we barely understand constructed a temple complex here, unlike anything else on Earth. The estimated weight of the entire project is staggering. Tens of thousands of tons of stone, with individual blocks weighing more than 130 tons, heavier than any modern tank. But the most compelling forbidden secret is the material itself. The builders used two primary types of rock: red sandstone and, crucially, andesite and diorite. Andesite is incredibly hard, second only to diamond in density. The ancient people who built Punku had no iron tools, no wheels, and no written language. Their most advanced tools were bronze and stone. To cut, shape, and polish this extremely hard diorite rock with the precision we see would have been a near impossible feat of engineering, even for the industrial age. We are not just talking about rough cuts, we are talking about angles, grooves, and polished surfaces that suggest a level of technological mastery that, according to established history, should have been 1,000 years in the future. The ruins themselves are an astonishing sight. Scattered across the ground are thousands of intricately carved stones that look like components for a massive interlocking machine. The famous H-blocks, which resemble large standardized components, are cut with perfect 90-degree internal and external angles. These cuts are so precise that a razor blade cannot be slipped between the stone faces. The drill holes are mathematically perfect, uniform in depth and diameter, suggesting the use of a continuous rotating drill, a tool that shouldn't have been invented for over 1,500 years. The obvious question stares down at every archaeologist. How? How did they quarry these massive diorite blocks? How did they transport them across the freezing plateau from quarries 60 miles away? And most importantly, how did they cut them with a precision that would challenge a modern CNC machine? The terrifying truth is that the conventional historical timeline is utterly inadequate to explain the construction of Punku. The stones themselves speak of a lost technology, or an ancient unseen influence. This monument is a silent stone challenge to everything we think we know about the dawn of human civilization. The ruins of Punku are not a random pile of debris. They are the shattered pieces of a complex three-dimensional puzzle. The central question is not what the Punku civilization built, but how they designed and executed a system of stonework that still defies modern machinery. The greatest riddle is the complete lack of chisel marks. The surfaces of the andesite and diorite blocks are flawlessly polished and planar, suggesting they were not cut by crude bronze tools, but by a form of abrasion or even a vibrating cutter, a technology that we know should not have existed for more than 1,000 years. The H-blocks, the distinctive interlocking standardized components found across the site, are the most compelling evidence of lost technology. These blocks are cut with internal grooves and perfectly placed notches, creating an ingenious system of modular construction. They were not merely placed on top of each other. They were designed to interlock like massive Lego pieces, providing an incredible level of stability in this earthquake-prone region. Even more astounding are the small, precise, eye-shaped metal clamps once used to fuse the blocks together. These clamps required the builders to cut a perfect, identical trench into two separate stone faces. another feat of precision that points to highly advanced, standardized tools and measurement systems. This is an engineering philosophy that we associate with 20th century mass production, not a 1,500-year-old high-altitude civilization. The logistics of transportation only deepen the mystery. The immense blocks of red sandstone and diorite were quarried 10 and 60 miles away, respectively. Imagine moving a 130-ton block, the weight of 2 fully loaded semi-trucks, across the high, arid Altiplano desert, up steep slopes, without the use of wheeled transport. Conventional theories suggest they used thousands of laborers, thick ropes, and rolling logs. Yet there were no large forests in the Altiplano capable of supplying the necessary logs. Furthermore, the terrain is uneven. The required effort would be so colossal, so wasteful of human life and energy, that it simply challenges belief. The official narrative fails to account for the necessary time, resources, and power. But perhaps the most powerful and terrifying truth about Puma Punku is found not in its construction, but in its destruction. The temple complex did not simply decay over time. The ruins are scattered across the plateau in a way that suggests a sudden, colossal, catastrophic event. Massive blocks weighing over 100 tons were thrown hundreds of feet from their original positions. These stones are not merely collapsed, they are overturned, twisted, and broken in ways that defy simple geological decay. Archaeologists theorize the destruction was caused by a massive earthquake, likely combined with a devastating flood from the nearby Lake Titicaca, which was once much higher. The sheer force required to scatter these immense, interlocking stones demands a cataclysmic scale that is hard to imagine. Was the ingenious interlocking design of the H-blocks an attempt by the builders to protect their temple from the violent nature of the Andes? And if so, what force could possibly have overcome such an advanced, seemingly earthquake-proof structure? The shattered stones of Puma Punku are not just ruins. They are pieces of evidence pointing towards a horrifying final moment for a civilization whose genius we can only begin to comprehend. To unlock the secrets of Puma Punku, we must look beyond the stone and listen to the silent whispers of the past. The builders of this impossible site belong to the Tiahuanaco civilization, a culture that dominated the Andes long before the Inca. But the Tiahuanaco people left behind no written records, forcing us to rely on the most fragile of historical artifacts: mythology. The central figure in this mythology is the Viracocha, the creator god. The legends describe Viracocha not as a gentle spirit, but as a stern, powerful being who rose from the waters of Lake Titicaca in a time of darkness to create the sun, the moon, and the stars. He then commanded the creation of humankind. The most stunning visual representation of this god is found carved into the immense gateway of the sun at the nearby Tiahuanaco site, a figure with a distinct, non-Andean appearance, holding 2 staffs. The legend holds the forbidden secret of Puma Punku's true builders. The myths explicitly state that the first builders of the great city were not mortal men, but gods, or at the very least, a race of highly advanced beings who came from the sky or the water. It is Viracocha himself who is credited in some versions of the myth with teaching humanity the very skills needed to cut and move the gigantic stones. For proponents of the ancient aliens theory, this mythology is not a fanciful story. It is a literal historical record describing non-human benefactors who provided the technological blueprint for the impossible stonework. But the Tiahuanaco people left behind more than just myths. They left a celestial blueprint. The layout of the entire Puma Punku and Tiahuanaco complex is oriented with astonishing precision toward astronomical events. Researchers have discovered that the main axes of the temples align perfectly with the rising and setting positions of the sun during the solstices and equinoxes. Even more complex, some carvings represent cycles of the planets and stars that were only accurately measured much later in human history. This advanced celestial knowledge poses a profound challenge to established history. How did a culture supposedly lacking basic engineering tools possess the mathematical and astronomical genius to align their colossal stonework with such cosmic precision? This suggests the builders were obsessed not with earthly conquest, but with connecting their structure directly to the heavens. The connection between the myths of the sun god Viracocha and the precise astronomical alignment points to an unseen truth. The purpose of Puma Punku was not a mere temple for mortal worship, but a massive, complex cosmic clock, a sacred site built on a template provided by beings with advanced celestial wisdom. This perspective transforms the site from a simple ruin into an alien instruction manual, leaving us to wonder what other knowledge lies encrypted within the shattered remains of this magnificent high-altitude city. When faced with the impossible, the human mind searches for answers beyond the conventional. For decades, the shattered genius of Puma Punku has been the main stage for one of the most polarizing theories in modern history, the ancient aliens theory. Proponents argue that the precision found here is not evidence of human genius, but of the direct intervention of beings from another world. The foundation of this theory lies in the question of tool marks. As we have established, the cuts are too perfect, the drill holes too uniform, and the angles too precise for the simple copper and stone tools known to the Tiahuanaco civilization. How can a civilization without the wheel create a cut that rivals a modern laser? Theorists suggest the builders possessed a form of forbidden technology, knowledge that was either given to them directly by advanced visitors or was left behind from a far earlier, lost human civilization. The most compelling and controversial argument centers on a theory of acoustic levitation and plasma cutting. To transport 130-ton blocks across the plateau, proponents suggest the use of high-frequency sound waves to reduce the stone's gravity, the very technology described in some ancient texts. Furthermore, the precise, perfect grooves and cuts could have been achieved not by chiseling, but by a form of plasma cutter or high-frequency ultrasonic vibration, tools that effectively melt the rock on a microscopic level. This would explain the complete absence of tool marks and the uncanny, mirror-like smoothness of the diorite surfaces. If true, the entire site is a relic of a technologically advanced civilization that existed thousands of years before the accepted historical timeline. The ruins of Puma Punku themselves contain imagery that fuels this fire. Proponents of the ancient aliens theory point to the detailed carvings on the remaining blocks, claiming they depict non-human figures, unusual star charts, and symbols that look remarkably like complex wiring diagrams. The central figure of Viracocha is sometimes interpreted not as a sun god, but as a being wearing a helmet or holding a strange technological device. The shattered pieces of the temple, therefore, are not just building materials. They are the scattered remains of an ancient spaceport or a teaching center. The forbidden truth is that mainstream archaeology officially rejects these theories, insisting that the evidence can and will eventually be explained by human ingenuity. They argue that the alien theory diminishes the incredible work of the Tiahuanaco people. However, the ruins remain an undeniable physical challenge to that very history. Until a plausible, human-based theory can fully explain the logistics, the transportation, and the impossible precision of the H-blocks, Puma Punku will continue to stand as the world's most powerful monument to the possibility that we were not, and are perhaps still not, alone. If the construction of Puma Punku speaks of impossible genius, its destruction whispers of an even greater, terrifying power. The ruins are not the result of slow decay. They are the consequence of a single, sudden, and complete cataclysm. The most compelling question is, what force was powerful enough to shatter a temple built with such precision that it was seemingly designed to last forever? Archaeologists who have studied the scatter pattern of the ruins universally agree. The temple was destroyed by a force of unimaginable magnitude. Massive blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, were not merely toppled. They were thrown hundreds of feet from their original foundations. They lie overturned, twisted, and broken in ways that defy simple earthquakes. This evidence points directly to a horrifying combination of seismic activity and a monumental flood, a scenario that aligns uncannily with the most ancient myths of the region. The forbidden truth is found in the legends of a great flood. Tiahuanaco mythology, like many ancient myths across the world, speaks of a time when the world was destroyed by water. The creator god, Viracocha, himself is said to have risen from the waters of Lake Titicaca to restart civilization. For some researchers, the presence of silt and sediments found layered within the ruins strongly suggests that the site was, at some point, submerged or violently impacted by a massive wave. Could this cataclysm be the same event described in the global flood myths? A planetary upheaval that wiped the technological slate clean? The scientific community offers a slightly different, though equally terrifying explanation: a rapid climatic collapse. Evidence shows that the Tiahuanaco civilization peaked during a period of favorable climate, but a massive, prolonged drought followed, dramatically lowering the water level of Lake Titicaca. This environmental disaster would have led to famine, civil unrest, and the eventual abandonment of the capital. However, this theory fails to account for the sheer violence of the shattered stones. The final, terrifying possibility is that the destruction was not natural, but self-inflicted. If the builders indeed possessed a form of forbidden, advanced technology, could a mistake, a sudden power surge, or a technological malfunction have caused the devastating explosion that literally tore the temple apart? The violence captured in the scattered ruins is too specific, too uniform, to be just an earthquake. The shattered stones of Punku are not only a monument to their genius, but a permanent warning etched in the Andes. The higher you climb, the harder you fall. The day the gods vanished remains a terrifying testament to a civilization that went out in a blinding flash of power and destruction. We have journeyed through the desolate air of the Altiplano, explored the impossible precision of the H-blocks, deciphered the myths of the sky god Viracocha, and witnessed the evidence of a colossal cataclysm. Yet after all the evidence is examined, after every cut is measured and every stone weighed, Punku retains its primary, defiant posture. It is an enigma. The official verdict of mainstream archaeology places the burden of proof squarely on human ingenuity. They contend that given enough time, enough rope, enough simple tools, and enough human labor, the Tiahuanaco people could have engineered these structures. They suggest that our failure to understand is simply a failure of imagination regarding the capabilities of ancient man. The truth, however, is that this explanation feels inadequate. It cannot fully account for the precision, the sheer logistics, and the devastating speed of the site's final moment. The true forbidden truth of Punku is the profound challenge it poses to our modern perception of history. If the site was built entirely by human hands, it means a non-industrial civilization in the Andes possessed a mastery of mathematics, stone cutting, and standardized engineering that we only achieved in the 19th and 20th centuries. This forces us to question every timeline, every textbook, and every assumption we hold about the rise of human technological capability. It proves that a lost civilization, with a level of advancement we cannot yet comprehend, existed right here, on this planet. For those who adhere to the ancient aliens theory, Punku is the unanswerable question that history tried to bury. It is the final, tangible proof that either 1. A highly advanced technological civilization existed and was destroyed, forcing its survivors to start human history over, or 2. Extraterrestrial forces provided a brief, shining moment of technological transfer, only to watch it vanish back into the primitive air when the gods departed. The shattered blocks, therefore, are not ruins, but discarded pieces of an ancient alien curriculum. The legacy of Punku is the eternal question mark it leaves hanging over the Bolivian highlands. The stone remains silent, offering no easy answers, forcing every visitor, every scientist, and every theorist to confront the limits of their own knowledge. The great structures of the world, the pyramids, Stonehenge, the Great Wall, all demand awe. But only Puma Punku demands a complete re-evaluation of reality. The wind whispers through the broken stones, carrying the unsolved secrets of a time when the gap between man and God was perhaps not so wide. The truth is out there, but it remains locked, shattered, and scattered across the beautiful, terrifying plain of the Altiplano.